we'll go into our recap.
I wish people could see your camera for Roll20 because it was just for.
Yeah. um, so we had started out in the town of Brisbane, set in the Queensland. There, you had gathered, some folklore, corroborating stories, learning bits about dwarven culture and the history of the dwarves and how it crossed into a conflict with Shadowhar. At the town hall, you had met with
You
Galvin,
okay? I'm just
Galvin
having a lot of fun.
Canberra, and he loaded you up in a cart and was taking you to go see the king of the Queensland, King Victor. And along the way, you were in the countryside, talking. He was singing a lot of songs, like folk songs and work songs. He could make commentary about the countryside as well in your passing. And you were attacked by goblins in the countryside while riding in a cart. Now, I know no one's ever done this before in D&D. This was it was a surprise to us all. But we did have a goblin attack, and you ended up learning about the nature of goblins, and maybe even a bit about the attitudes of the dwarves toward them, leaving you with whatever feelings that you might have regarding dwarf or goblin as you had continued on your way. As you continue on your way to the keep of New Denales here, which is where King Victor was to meet you. As you had entered, it was late at night. You had discovered that Tig the goblin, who resembled a dwarf way more than her more wild cousins, and of course you learn that there's kind of a morphology to goblins. That they have an impressionable nature, I guess you could say. But anyway, you had entered. There was a large set of double doors, which featured a king, a very tired, old-looking king, piles of treasure, a very long beard, some burbs for some reason, and you had pushed your way inside on, well, they were very large stone doors, but they swung open actually rather easily. Very well made. Almost maybe counterweighted or something. Like there was not a lot of effort that was needed, which is good because Chroma Company is not the strongest. Your only weakness is being weak. And there you had made it into the royal chamber of King Victor Io, and you were all here. Blah 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 blah. You're sent on your way forward. You had your friend Galvin as a translator, who stayed behind, and you were asked to address the king. At that point, you had talked amongst yourselves and just said, well, we're going to just stand in the middle and make a generic statement to the three different dwarves that were up on this raised section of the throne room. And so you did. There was a little bit of, like, why did Galvin snicker a little bit? And that is when there was an incident where a servant had come in saying that the Shadowhar were here, and that you were bidden to turn invisible and to hide physically behind the pillars, because it seemed like the Shadowhar were very actively sweeping for magic, and this was a diplomatic visit, at least from someone who the dwarves call or recognize, begrudgingly or otherwise, as governor, actually. And Coloctos, thank you very much for the re-up. So you actually have a governor of these lands. So while you are meeting with the king of the dwarves, there is a Shadowhar appointed governor who came in, looked at first like a maybe a green dragonborn. But there's a lot of different things. The way that the horns and the face, and like there's too many things that were just off. Where even someone like Selter would have given a double look in some regard. And whether or not this is peak draconic performance that she might admire, even this person was off. And you had linked together that this governor sapfolk here was a creation of Oiho. He had all the makings of someone who had become an Abishai, as a sort of a person who was turned into a dragon, or was bestowed some kind of draconic form or lineage, more directly or overtly than even the Dragonborn. And, well, as you've learned throughout the course of the story, tieflings themselves have a seemingly direct link back to dragons, and are not necessarily their own people. It was here that, well, Tiny Cipher had manifested in the form of Bright's familiar, Peggy Sue, and was giving a bit of a status report on things. And you had learned that the Repentless, the airship upon which you tore through space and time to escape the Imperial City and had crashed, well, the Repentless, and therefore Selter herself, was rather hurting. She's in need of repairs, but this isn't as simple as being able to do some welding or riveting or using magic to fabricate things. Selter needs to eat, and she needs biomass, and not even just biomass, because she needs the other raw material and minerals and such that would eventually go to regrow this organic ship, this thing, whatever you want to call the Repentless. It's a ship that flies in the air. We can call it an airship, but it's not just an airship either. Anyway, she is in both need of repair and in need of fuel. And as Cipher was discussing with you, her fuel seems to be the things that she values. And in this case, it was her treasury. Because you saw her coins were all but gone. Gems and weapons and other magical items had been consumed in this second, not quite back to back, but in this second grand expenditure of her ability to sort of pause time and move before it starts again. So Selter is really in bad shape, and Cipher is presumably with her, but also with you, as he imprinted himself onto a couple different manifestations or like projections of Bright. Through things like Mage Hand, Unseen Servant, and in this case, as Peggy Sue, her familiar. How else may he manifest? Well, we don't know quite yet, but there may be time to experiment. And it's here that the king said, well, I can put you on an airship because I can't authorize the expenditure of funds. Like, even if I bought everything that you just told me up front, as a person, I can't buy it with treasury unless I have the queen's consent and knowledge as well. And on top of that, it's probably important for word to get back to the mountain, if it hasn't already been there or gotten there, of the implied threats that the governor was making against the king and through the king against the rest of the dwarves here in the Queensland and for all of Ailartsua, which is the dwarven lands, primarily the mountain, but the broader name for all of the dwarven lands. As it was nighttime, you would be given a place where you could rest, and you were asked to devise some kind of a cover, because he would put you on a royal airship to go to the mountain, but he urged you, no magic. They're looking for it. They can detect it. It is something that is capable of being seen through. So, however you're going to do it, if I'm going to get you to the mountain, and you should go to the mountain, you're going to have to work on something yourselves. And King Victor, or I don't know if you're on a more casual basis, if you still want to call him, Galvin, or however, he told you that you could end up taking along one of his 3 advisors with you, because that would be the message bearer, and you all could be whatever else, retainers, pages, squires, or I don't know, just crew, laborers or something. However you want to disguise yourself, you can. But that the king would send one of the 3 as his messenger or his presence to the mountain to go deliver the message to the queen, and thereby very innocuously drop you all off there too. And then, so you had your choice of Auckland, who is this very primal-looking fellow here, big for a dwarf, even with like more hair and beard than a dwarf, very animalistic in appearance. He seemed to be maybe a doctor, maybe like he was able to come to the king's side when he was feeling faint, and assuage him in some manner. You could choose Ewick, who is an elderly, very sage-looking dwarf. He seemed to be able to see you all even when you were magically invisible. Seems to be knowledgeable, rather peaceful. So, mechanically out of character if you want to presume he's a wizard. Well, you can if you wish. Their classes are as of yet unknown, but the way he's carrying himself, saying a wizard is maybe a good reduction of his mannerisms and appearance. Or, if you wanted, you could take Tasman here. And Tasman is the one, like, he is armor and weapons, even in the royal chamber, and is even seemingly wearing the garb of Shadowhar or that of Weejas. Though you all had calculated that, if anything, he's more of an anti-paladin. Like, he is a... he understands the Shadowhar, he understands Weejas, and seemingly has very little love, because even against Governor Sapfolk here, he had stepped forward in order to challenge him, and the king had to hold him back because there was an entire contingent of soldiers, let alone, I don't know, if someone reached the state of governor, in some way they probably had to prove themselves. Now, how, whatever. I mean, because not like people also just don't get appointed because of political favors and, they lack qualifications. But the king seemingly had a fear, I mean, a respect might be generous, but at least a fear of the governor. So there might be something more that he knows the governor is capable of. So he held back Tasman here. So where we're going to be picking up after the recap is you all had the audience. The Shadowhar had departed. They're in the countryside. they might, they're probably still lingering in some ways, magically or mundanely, overtly or covertly. So the planning is now all of yours. Now, of course, due to the circumstances here, we have the spotlight is going to be on Norallie and Loki and Bright for the planning of this. But again, if we're talking travel and mischief and sort of avoiding people through magical or mundane means, we actually have the two sneaky sneaks. The two mischievous people here, and Loki is roped in there as well. So here we go. We pick up the cameras now go from third person and they zoom into your eyeballs, and now we're in your first person views of everything that's happening.
Cutscene's over.
The awkward change from the high definition cutscene to the low res play.
Yeah, it wasn't a pre-rendered. It went to actual gameplay. It wasn't just a pre-rendered cutscene anymore.
Okay. So we need to sneak into. No, we're not sneaking. We're going to see the queen.
Yeah, but in disguise. Why are we going in disguise? I mean, why do we need to sneak if we're all going, like, if you're sending us with an escort?
Because you are outsiders, and that could bring a heavy suspicion upon the king for possibly having knowledge or influence about the tragic events that had just recently happened regarding the Emperor of the Shadowheart.
Oh, okay.
And he really wants to avoid any suspicion or accusation of the Shadowheart.
And we're seeing the queen because Celta is a hoarder and used up all her gold.
Yeah. I feel like we're going to have to come up with a better source of gold at some point. I mean, it's too much to ask for them to supply a whole Celter's hoard of gold just from their kingdom. Maybe we can pick some up. Maybe we can steal some from Shadowheart.
What if we just steal another Shadowheart ship and crash it down and Celter can eat it?
I mean, maybe. Would that work? I don't know if that would work. It's worth a try. Okay, so anyway, I want to be disguised as a goblin. It's fun, and they're the same size as me.
But they uses magic. Unless you want to use like makeup.
It doesn't have to use magic. I mean, we can just dye me green.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you have some green, don't you?
Well, I don't, but Mordecai might. I mean, Mordecai has blue and I have purple. Do you want to be a blue and purple goblin?
I mean, if you mix those together, that would just make it kind of a lighter purple. I don't think that's green. We need green. Goblins are green.
Well, I don't think Mordecai has a yellow foundation.
Well, goblins can be green. They don't necessarily have to be from what you are conjecturing.
I mean, it's true, but if I'm just pretending to be like a captured goblin, then, because we captured a goblin, so I know it's possible.
Yes.
If I'm pretending to just be a captured goblin, then, I mean, it would be just like a goblin, right? And she'd probably be green. So
yeah,
I feel like of all the parts that are going on here, the green paint, if that's the hard part, then we definitely have a bigger problem.
No, green dye or paint for you is not necessarily going to be a problem.
Look, tiefling foundations come in a lot of different colors, but you're only supposed to buy one that's like 1 or 2 shades off from you.
I guess that makes sense. So what are you going to be disguised as?
I'm just going to be a tiefling, but maybe I'll just change my clothes and wear black and red and and be a Shadowheart.
Oh, that'd be fun.
And then Loki could do that too, and Mordecai could do that too. And then Celine.
Well, why
What
would there
is
be so
she-
many Shadowheart tieflings here at the same time?
Well, because obviously we visited the king for resources for an orphanage, and we need to go to the queen to talk about to confirm that these funds are able to go towards that orphanage.
Well, maybe is that the sort of thing that would happen here? I mean, would they be coming for that? I don't know. I want to see somebody disguised as dwarves. I think it would be more fun.
So I think Celine's a bit too tall.
Yeah, Celine's too tall. You're too tall too. Maybe Mordecai could do it. How tall is Loki? Maybe he could do it. I'm down here, so when I look up, it's hard for me to tell how tall people are sometimes.
You're the shortest one here.
Well, I know that.
I'm the second shortest one here.
What if somebody walked around on their knees? Then they could look like a dwarf.
I mean, okay, maybe if we get Celine to stand on her knees, and then we'll give her like a longer dress to hide her legs. And then, it would be rude if you step on her dress.
I mean, it would have to be a shorter dress because she's only walking on her knees. It'd have to be like a knee-length dress.
Well, no, we'd cut it so like there's like a long train, like a wedding dress.
Oh, that'd be fun.
But then why is a dwarf on a wedding walking around with a bunch of tieflings?
And a captured goblin. It's the strangest wedding party ever. I don't think that story holds up. Maybe we're gonna have to skip the whole wedding angle for Celine. Besides, that never really.
Celine's ears are kind of pointy. Maybe if we make her some fake horns and she uses Mordecai's foundation, she can just be another tiefling.
I mean, she could. Do we have fake horns? That'd be fun. What if they fell off? It seems like a risk.
Well, all tieflings, they have their childhood horns, and that falls out for your adult horns that grow in later. And
wait, is that how it works? I had no idea.
No, they don't fall out. They just keep growing. I mean, if it falls out, we can just say that it was loose to begin with.
Oh, loose horn disease. I hope it's not contagious.
No, but if you get knocked real hard, your horn could crack in the middle, and then it's weak, but it's not fully cracked all the way, so it doesn't just fall off. But eventually, the tension will snap the rest of it off.
Loki unconsciously reaches up to his broken off horn where Hiren had made a substitute for him.
Yeah, that sounds. But I mean, at the same time, you'd have the opportunity to replace it with a hinge. You could use it as a compartment to store things.
Yeah, some people do that.
Yeah, in fact, if Bright remembers, back from when she first, well, of course, when you were on the ship to go to Mesomasca to go meet Dulles of the Blue Flame to get your book signed, the captain actually had his horns had a hinge to him, and he actually kept sort of like these little spy glasses up, and he could hinge them down from his horns to put in front of his face so he can look around and it was all magnified and he can look to the horizon. So it's possible.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it seems kind of fun. They're basically like attachment hard points if you think of it that way.
Yeah. Well, even in the fashion here, Mordecai had his veil, and so therefore a lot of other tieflings would use like little caps that would hold their like veils or masks as part of their appearance in the big cities too. So they are accessories. They are attach points. They are fixtures. A lot of stuff. You could probably put a whistle in
Shadowheart
one.
don't
And
wear masks, do they?
what's that?
The Shadowheart don't wear masks, do they?
They do not know.
It's kind of weird. Who goes into
Yeah.
a big city without masks?
Yeah. Face feels naked.
Well, maybe they just don't. It's just not how they do things. They don't.
It's just a little weird, you know? Like, why would you want everyone to know what you look like? Especially strangers.
But what if you're cute and then you want them to see that you're cute?
Well, then you invite them into a nice restaurant and then take it down.
I don't know. I guess I mean, we don't really do that in Oct. I mean, some people do because there's a human population, and some of them do because they came from Mizamaska or whatever. But gnomes, for the most part, we just don't see the need, I guess. But then again, our whole society is hidden away, so maybe that covers it for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a well, you came from like a smaller-ish town, right? And
Yeah,
you kind
it
of
was
knew
just a couple
everyone.
hundred people.
Yeah, you kind of knew everyone, but like having a bunch of people you don't know, knowing what your face looks like, it's just kind of like weird.
See, I think instead of everybody wearing masks, you should have just different names. You should have like public names and private names, and then when you meet somebody, I mean, you can tell them your name that's not your real name, and then it doesn't matter that they don't recognize you or that they do recognize you. Because then, if they want to talk to somebody about you, and say bad things, they wouldn't know who it is.
Well, while you are having this initial discussion, the king had been speaking with the three back here. Is going to excuse himself with a couple other sort of minor retainers of the keep, and is going to leave you all with the three that are up on the stage here, and you are prompted here by them to tell which one of them is going to be traveling with you so that they can get their own things in order, as the other two are then going to make sure that they can stay behind and attend to the king and any troubles that might crop up during this time.
Which one of you is the most charitable? Particularly towards young orphan children.
Is the most what? Charitable?
Yeah, charitable.
The three of them look at you with some curiosity. The elder of them seemingly translates into Dwarvish what you're talking about. As these two look at the older one and give a little bit of a nod, but then just go back to looking at you.
Wait, is Ewek the only one that knows common? That could definitely be an issue.
Well, in this moment, seemingly so. If the other two can speak it, they've chosen not to. But Ewek here has at least made the effort to translate.
Well, my idea is to go when we go to the queen. If anyone has asked what we're doing, tell them that we're trying to get the queen's approval for funding for an orphanage. So whichever of you is the most like charitable, most known to be like, good-hearted and charitable and fond of children, would probably be the best person to take with us.
Ewick speaks up.
Yeah.
My dear, I don't believe that your story would hold up to scrutiny. Why is it that agents of Shadowhar would approach the Queen for funding for a Shadowhar orphanage?
Well, it's not a Shadowheart orphanage. It's a orphanage in Mesomaska that we are going to different people of higher upping to get funding to take down there. So the queen and king of the dwarves would just be one of the few people that we'd be asking. Before we were probably potentially going to talk to the emperor, but the emperor is not available anymore, so it'd probably be more us talking to like a governor or a prime minister or something.
And do you have the paperwork to back this up?
Yes, I do, in fact.
I
I
mean
have
on
an
you.
orphanage.
Right now.
I should. Let me check my bags. So being that I am actually the proprietor of an orphanage, should I not have paperwork on me?
I mean, Norallie's not exactly the most hands-on with it.
Yeah, but she's gone out to do fundraising for this orphanage already.
Well, yes, as a face by going to the different balls and stuff. I don't know. I don't know if you'd really carry like paperwork. You might have like an introduction, a letter of introduction.
I mean, that honestly might be all that's required if this is just a visit to explain a situation. Say, hey, and it's just like, hey, this is an orphanage that is being funded. Here's some information on it. You know,
The question stands: if you're to pose as a member of Shadowhar society, why are you going with us to see the Queen instead of going yourself? What is your purpose? I
well, it would
have
be that we
questions.
had already. Well, I mean, it's well mostly because the king wants you to go with us, but it could be that we already talked to the king, and he wanted us to go talk to the queen to make sure that everything that you're both on the same page. And he sent someone along with us, as we do not have a native dwarven translator on our party.
I'm enjoying the story. That's all.
He speaks to the other two. There's a few words uttered in reply. Maybe Dwarven is a very efficient language, as the couple gestures and words that the other two give back to Ewick here. I am not too convinced myself, but maybe I'm not the right one for you. I'll go if you wish, but my confidence is not high in this plan. He seems
Let
to
me ask
be
you something.
reserved.
We have a lot of tieflings with us. That's really the main issue is how do we account for the presence of the tieflings in dwarven lands? And so let me ask you, what's the most common reason for tieflings to come and visit? Do they come on business, or are they always with the government, with the Shadar government? I mean, or are they like missionaries? Why do tieflings come here most often?
Any time that they do, it's usually with the military or some sort of civil service, as you saw with our governor.
Well,
There are none that live in these lands, though there are some who do come through and trade. They are not inherently as much of a threat as perhaps those of more direct governmental influence. But
no.
the tieflings, though I'm sure you've heard the other term for them, from others in these lands, generally would be very questionable as to why we would be in their presence or allow them among us. There is not too much love, I suppose you could say, between us and them. And any interaction would be for a very overtly specific reason.
Okay. So how about this? Suppose they were a special committee commissioned by somebody in Shadhar, I don't care who, to come out and catch a goblin to bring back and put in the zoo. Or whatever, wherever they would put a goblin. As like an exotic, maybe in the circus or some other kind of, maybe not for the nicest reasons. But that's okay. And then they caught me instead, and now they're taking them back, and they want to stop at the Queen's first for, I don't know why. Norallie, why would they stop at the Queen on the way home? And also, why would Celine be there? There's still some holes in the setup, but we're working on it.
Right, I don't think your plan was well thought out. Like, mine is a little more thought out than yours.
There's some translation going on with the other two.
Although we are, as the Chroma Company, we could easily rebrand as a circus. Mordecai knows tricks. I know stuff. But you know how to do like the pretty lights and all that. So like,
but that's all just magic.
The entertainment. Yeah, but we could just say we're in the entertainment business, and we just wanted to perform in front of royalty to get some rep, and then we performed in front of the king, and he was delighted, so he sent us to the queen.
Okay, so basically we're disguised as ourselves.
Yes.
Do I still get to be a goblin?
Yeah, sure. I mean, maybe we shouldn't be the Chroma Company if we're trying not to be the Chroma Company, but we could just say we're a performing act. I mean, if the orphanage idea isn't that good, but I think it's a wonderful idea. Plus, like, we could get some money for the orphanage, which is always nice.
Well, I'm just thinking, since the main reasons for tieflings to come here is as either Shadowheart military or as traders, and we don't want to try to impersonate the Shadowheart military because they have all kinds of customs and rules and things we don't know. So traders would make the most sense, because traders pretty much act like traders everywhere you go, and they're easier to impersonate. So that's just why I wanted to pretend to be traders. But maybe we could pretend to be an entertainment company too, and that would also be great, because I could dance, and then if the dance is good, then it's just an exotic goblin dance, and if the dance is bad, then I'm actually a jester.
Ewik speaks up with a set phrase of his, as you seem to be picking up. I have my doubts.
Do
you have any sort of performance equipment with you? Things for your act? They might want to see that there is proof that you aren't just a singer. If you want to swing on a rope, or you want to do a fire-eating act, do you have the equipment for that? You can't just say that you're doing something. If you must produce that you are, you need to be convincing on all levels.
Well, if we go for a musical act, I have a flute, Mordecai has his violin, and then Bright's always the manager and does the music, and Lucky, you don't know music.
Yeah, but I can only do that with magic, though.
Well, nothing says we can't use magic if it's an act, It's just like we can't use magic to disguise ourselves. But that's what we have makeup for.
Yes, magic raises suspicion, and it creates distrust.
This reminds me of bringing Brayson onto the ship.
Look, at least I actually have papers that say that we run an orphanage. we're not lying that we had a ticket. We actually have an orphanage that we could actually raise money for if we wanted.
Yeah,
And we have actually performed in as a mascot at inns, you know.
it's true. We have.
So there's potential here.
Ewick
Okay.
talks to the other two, and they're looking not necessarily doubtful, but their brows furrow in different ways. And the large one, and again, it would be, he has every characteristic of a dwarf except maybe he's somehow like permanently embiggened, right? Like something might have happened just where dwarf in proportion and other nature and stature. Well, I mean maybe not stature because he's about twice as big. And he stands up and is talking to Ewick, but also like really it's to everyone. As he goes on in a dwarven tone that has a roughness to it, as the dwarven language seems to naturally, but there's a smooth growl behind it all. Not necessarily threatening, but there's just something very throaty about the way that he speaks. There's just something in the periphery that just is grumbly. Not necessarily mad, but just kind of a thing. My dear fellow here is, well, he's growing rather impatient, and it's understandable as we need to do our own planning. He has thrown out the suggestion that perhaps you simply disguise yourselves as laborers. Auckland thinks that would be the easiest. You can simply wear some sort of workers' clothing, which could include some headwear to disguise your horns. I'm not sure about your complexion. That would be another matter, but he seems to think that is a straightforward issue. Of course, that has my concerns as well, in all fairness.
Why would simple laborers be seeing the queen, though?
I don't believe his intention was that you as a laborer would be seeing the queen, nor would you be declaring as such, simply that you would be working on the ship that happens to be going to the mountain. Probably the less that you bring up the royal family, the better, in my opinion.
And what's even the point? Why don't we just, instead of going on a ship, why don't we just travel along the road? Might take a little longer, but we'd avoid running into the horror on a ship and avoid having to have the whole conversation of why are you going to see the queen?
I mean, the good thing about laborers is Mordecai knows how these ships are built. He seems to be good at that. So he could maybe talk us through things that would come up.
I'm not any good at building things, though.
Well, I'm also not. but we don't have to actually do it. It's just a cover story.
Tasman in the middle speaks up, and in very perfectly accented infernal, you can understand him clearly. There's no dwarvish accent. There's no Shadowhar style accent. He is speaking infernal very clearly and understandably. Like it's almost disarming how well he is speaking this. And it's not the case, like, Bright, you are hearing infernal. So it's not like he's speaking in some weird universal tongue. This is not, if it's magic, it's no direct magic, or it's not a spell that he had cast to do so. But infernal, he looks to you, Norallie. And he tells you, your ideas have merit, but they're too ambitious, too complicated. Simple is better. You are here at the favor and the behest of our king. You are being given privileges that not many would, especially in the light of all that we've learned. I do more planning and less griping. You want something done? Choose one of us and we'll work with you. We all have our styles. You may not like me, but I can promise you results. You may not like the others either, but they will give you results in their own way. But don't waste our time when we have things to do. We must either plan with you or our king. You can get a feel for his personality, Norallie.
I'm not the one who started griping. I had a plan. It's pretty solid. I have the paperwork. And there's not too much to it. It's not too complicated, but someone had to bring up, like, oh, what about this and that? But no, it's actually a good idea. I have the paperwork that says there's an orphanage. The orphanage is in Mazamaska. There's no lying that has to be done because I actually have an orphanage.
Ewick can find worry in anything. The sun will come up at the exact time that it needs to, and he will worry that the sun has risen that day. The clouds will pass overhead, creating cool shade, and Ewick will worry about the shade.
So he's just a worry. Got it. Right, do you just want to go with the orphanage plan? Because we're both very familiar with the orphanage.
I think the orphanage plan is probably not very plausible, as sad as I am to say. It's certainly the most fun, but it just doesn't... Well, for one, it's not the right orphanarium. Ours is in Mazamaska. It's not in Shadowhar. And we don't know anything about Shadowhar culture.
You don't have to say it's in
Shadowhar society.
No,
why would we be up here, though, then?
Because the plan is that we want to support this orphanarium. That's in Mazamaska, but we are from Shadowhar, so we're going up to Shadowhar because a lot of Shadowhar is moving to Mazamaska anyway. So we are coming up to Shadowhar to get funding because, you know, a lot of Shadowhar was in Oldport when the earthquake happened, so there's quite a few Shadowhar orphans down there.
I mean, that part is true. It just seems like we're so far from home. I mean, it's a long trip.
As you're talking, Auckland is discussing things in his gentle but I don't know, like that warning grumble in the background too with his voice to the other. And you do hear he mentions each of them by name. You hear Ewick, you hear Tasman, and his voice never raises like Tasman's does, but he does have a couple emphatic points for the other two that are up here as well, as he is making some mild gestures, and as he does, like, he'll step forward, and you actually see that he'll bring forth a hand to make a gesture towards them. And as you do, as you yourselves are talking, you can see that it's maybe not just hair. Like, he has claws on his hands. And in fact, his feet, if those are boots, they're very well made, I guess, bear-like replicas. But those, now that you're seeing him walk and gesture, the way that he moves, this is almost a... Is he like somehow like a bear dwarf bear? Something... Did something happen? But these don't appear to just be necessarily leathers or furs. This might actually be him. Like, these might be his feet. These might actually be his hands and not just regalia or symbolic wear. So when he speaks and gestures, the other two are listening, and they seemingly watch his body as he gestures and walks forward. But proceed. I'm simply giving you personality or things to consider for any of the three that you choose.
I mean, I think he's probably just dwarven bear cavalry. Everybody loves that. I don't know. I like Ewig. He's nice to us, but I just feel like Tasman would be a real devil in a fight.
Well, we're trying to avoid a fight.
I know, but you didn't get it. Also, he speaks Infernal really well, which I appreciate. I guess it seems like there's probably a different language for all three of them, but I don't know what language Auckland is.
It's Dwarven. It's just spoken with a kind of a growly resonance because he's just such a big, like, barrel-chested dwarf that it just rumbles. Like when he speaks, it just almost like vibrates out of his body more than his mouth is necessarily. Like he's speaking with his mouth, but he just has a presence to him.
Is there just? I'm wondering if we can just avoid traveling in the airship altogether, and then avoid this whole situation where we have to pretend to be something, because none of my ideas are going along. Some of your ideas aren't going well, and I don't think that we could go with Mr. Bear's idea because we're tieflings, and it'd be weird for tieflings to be on a ship with dwarves in the first place.
My dear, says Ewik, if you were to do that, do you even know how to get to the mountain? How long it takes? What would you do if there was trouble on the road? What would you do if you were stopped and questioned by Shadowheart agents?
Okay. Well, first off, you can give us directions and a map. Second off, I don't know. It depends on the directions and the map. Also, we can get transport very easily. And if we're stopped by Shadowheart, it's going to be no different than us being stopped by Shadowheart on the airship. So.
I can see several flaws with your plan, Miss Norallie.
It's not even a plan. This is me talking. I see flaws with your plans.
I don't believe we've necessarily put one forward.
You guys have, unless you've forgotten. There was a plan, and I told you it wasn't a good one.
Well, I like your due caution, Miss Norallie. Would that there were more people like you in this world. We might not find ourselves in situations like this. The other two seeming... Well, not the other two, I'm sorry. Tasman snaps in Dwarvish over to Ewik. Something rather harsh. Not just because it's Dwarven, it's actually harsh words.
And, like, we have to get this gold for Seltzer. And so, I can't Seltzer. Who runs on gold? But... And, like, this is even assuming that the queen would even give us the money that we need. Like, what if she says no? Then the whole point's wasted.
I don't know what you're talking about, Miss Norallie, but perhaps if you chose me, we could sit and talk during our journey, and I might be able to enlighten you more. A growly dwarven and a barky dwarven from apparently the bear and the wolf beside the beside the owl here.
Why does he even want to go?
We are following the commands of our king, says
Okay.
Tasman.
I'll take that as a no. Right. I don't know. Is there anything we could do other than going to see the queen? Because no matter what, apparently any idea we have is not gonna fly. And maybe if there was just a way we can avoid getting on the ship altogether.
Ewick translates, and Auckland here doesn't talk back to the other two. Instead, he crouches down, and even though he has done so, he's still rather large, even compared to you, Norallie. And he beckons for you to walk forward to him, if you choose to do so.
I'll take a few steps closer.
He reaches one of his big bare paws out towards you and beckons you forward. Closer. He growls something.
I don't speak Dwarvish.
He said, whether or not Auckland understood, as soon as Ewick wanted to translate, he snapped. He simply motions, like he makes a come here gesture with his claws. Well, not his claws, his one claw.
I cautiously approach.
As you do, he takes one finger, and it is tipped with a claw, but he very slowly puts one finger like on top of your head, on your forehead, and like you just feel that there's a roughness to the patch of skin that is sort of his the pad of his finger, and there's just an incredible warmth in the presence of Auckland here. Like, he is just radiating heat. Norallie.
Yes.
He takes his finger and he puts it on his forehead. Auckland.
Yes. Auckland.
He then turns to the other two. And Tasman gives kind of a humph, and Ewick kind of crosses his arms and is he doesn't say anything, but he's watching. He opens his paw now fully to you, Norallie. He just puts it in front of you. What do you do?
I'm gonna lift my hand slowly. Cautiously put it forward.
Mm-hmm.
Very gently put my hand in his paw.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I've paused at this moment. I'm gonna look at him.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, is this right?
He closes his eyes for a moment, opens them, looks back at the other two. In a growly voice. And the other two, Ewick actually seems like, possible. He's stroking his feathery white beard. And Tasman gives a bit of a huff and says something maybe dismissive. Norallie. And then he makes a gesture like towards you, but he's putting his two paws together rather close. Auckland. And then he takes his two paw hands and sort of like he takes them apart. Norallie Auckland. And he then moves them somewhere in between. Ewick is looking at you, like he's looking at you specifically, Norallie, and is just watching. He almost has a smirk on his face as he's stroking his beard.
I definitely might need a translation for that one.
Ewick chuckles, not menacingly or disparagingly, not necessarily.
I'm
Interesting. Norallie, says Tasman.
Yes.
What he's saying is if you choose him, you can be made more like him.
More bear-like?
As his plan seems, you can be made into animals.
Well, I've already become a sheep before. It's not all that much fun.
I mean, it's not so bad.
It's not so bad, but it's not all that fun. You can't really say anything.
I mean, like, it's not a bad idea if we become animals. Nobody ever questions what animals are doing because they're just animals. So we could just go wherever we want.
I find it personally repulsive. Now, this is not in... well, if you said this, actually... Oh, no, we can do this. In common, if you were saying this in common, Bright, he will actually speak in... he will speak in perfectly accented Shadowheart common. Or, as Coffee had said earlier, textbook, although not infernal.
I probably... Since I was just talking to Norallie, I probably might have said that in infernal.
Oh, all right. Well then it's an infernal, but a process that would rob you of your wits, of your ability to act as nothing more than an animal would.
I mean, I wouldn't want that permanently. Wouldn't that just be for the trip, though? I mean, I wouldn't want it forever. I like my species the way it is.
I cannot imagine losing who I am, if even for a moment. To not be able to see and do and learn. An animal is a pitiable existence. A goblin caught in between.
So, do you have something that you would offer too? A different way? That's still infernal.
I would not turn you into an animal or into a laborer. No. I would simply take you with me. And what will happen will happen. that may not be to Ewik's liking, as he's like, Ewik was just about to raise a finger and say something, which was predictable. The king did not
he was going to
necessarily
have his
say how
doubts.
to get there, but I could take you, and under my authority, my reasons, you would be there, and if any questioned you, they would have to deal with me.
I like that. That seems pretty straightforward. Not a lot of. I mean, far be it from me to take the most straightforward approach, but um,
Tasman,
seems-
I have my doubts. It's very combative. The likelihood of incidents is very high.
Norallie, what do you think? Do you? I don't know how you would react to the animal thing. I mean, I'm inclined to think you would like it, but then when you
Well,
were
like I've
sheep,
been
you
at
said
it.
you didn't like it.
Well, I've been a sheep before, but I still knew who I was. I wouldn't want to be a sheep and not know that I wasn't supposed to be a sheep.
I mean, but if you didn't know you weren't supposed to be a sheep, wouldn't that make it easier?
Kind of takes a lot of pressure
Maybe.
off, yeah?
But like right now, I wouldn't want me to not know that in the future. You know?
Yeah, I can see that.
Um,
Well,
we could go with Tasman, and then like we can like try the orphanage excuse, and if they don't buy it, we can do something about it.
I think Tasman is just going to. If anyone asks, he'll just hit them with his hammer, probably.
I mean, that works too, honestly.
So from
It's a pretty nice hammer, to be completely honest. It's got
It
fancy
is.
runes on it.
it does, and quite a skull brand on it as well. Although, as you see in the picture, it is just it's an empty-eyed skull. It doesn't even have the one eye lurking about. There's no flesh. There's no little anything peeking out. Like that is it in, I guess, within the culture, this might be more of a heebie-jeebie, because you might be so used to seeing death as a personified thing, or even the skull that has the blue eye in it, that is of Ouija's. This is devoid of even that. It is just two black sockets in a skull.
I don't know. I like this is not in let's see what other I'll say this in Gnomish, because Norallie knows just a little Gnomish. I'm going to say I like Tasman the best. He's the most interesting.
Ditto. But that's a word for the same, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a Gnomish word.
Yeah, probably we should go with him. He's not so much a warrior. If we get into trouble, he'd probably be the most helpful.
Okay, so I'll say in Infernal, we have chosen Tasman, and we'll take his advice on travel arrangements as well.
And we'll work out any details of plan with him.
All right. So the in a moment here, a moment frozen in time, real quick, as you go to approach Bright to choose Tasman. Just to make sure that I'm being communicative. Like, I've given you clues, but I want to make sure that you have a basic gist. You can go with Tasman. I'm offering him as an option, not as a trap or anything. Of the three choices you've discovered about their personalities, and it would seem that if you don't go with your own plan, and none of them are stopping you, Norallie, from saying, no, we are going to go as diplomats of an orphanage, or we're going to go as traders, like what Bright is putting up. if you go with a leader's plan and not your own, Auckland is going to, I guess, turn you into animals, and it is going to be a rather expeditious trip because you're going to be an animal. You will be whatever, like a 2-inch sheep or a goat or a cow. I don't know, Bright. You seem like you like the cattle from the countryside before. And what would life be like if you got to be a cow for a while? But you would be apparently as an animal. No magic, no understanding. But you would have very little to worry about because you are as an animal. You know what? If they feed you and give you water and whatever, then you're happy. So you wouldn't have any sort of a papers please because you are livestock being brought from the countryside to the mountain, as is custom. If you go with Iwick, he is apparently a very knowledgeable person, very obviously doubtful. And where communication is both an issue and not an issue with Auckland, you can certainly talk to Iwick, and he could probably tell you all kinds of things, given his age and just his. If anything, Bright, you might resound with him because he can actually think so many thoughts. It creates a lot of doubt, or he can see a lot of errors in plans. But he also might know a lot. So if you want information, you get to keep your form. But you also have a more of a reserved type of person there with you. Now, as for your cover, well, I mean, maybe he can step up in some way. You could be laborers or attendees to him in some fashion. But that could be a benefit. You could keep your form. You could probably do something more passive. And you have a bank of knowledge, but one who's rather hesitant or can be stalled with indecision. Then you have a very direct Tasman here. And Tasman, if you go with him, you're probably going to get into a fight or several. As he's a very direct person. And he can communicate with you just like Iwick can. He probably doesn't know things like Iwick does. Not that he doesn't have knowledge that he can't share, but he is his knowledge is going to be, I guess, more practical knowledge than theoretical or more wisdom. Like his is, yeah, I know if you hit something, I might know where to hit stuff to make it fall over. I might have this more direct sense that goes along with his personality. And more than likely, you would end up in some sort of a conflict if you do go with Tasman, because he's a rather incendiary fellow. So these would be 3 things to measure your different tolerances for sneaking, combat, for wanting to learn about anything. So as a DM to player, there's no one correct answer. It's more the type of journey that you'd like to take along the way to get to the mountain. So in this moment, right, Bright, like you take a step forward, we choose, and then flash, flash, flash. Different outcomes sort of flash before your eyes, Bright. And now we resume time, and if you want to, you can still choose Tasman, of course, but with this thrown out there, with sort of the broad, hey, this is what I wanted to make sure I conveyed by, through each 3 of them. If that changes anything, then you can, or you can still choose Tasman. That's fine.
I think going with. Go ahead, Bright.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't think any of us wanted to be turned into animals. At least, I mean, I appreciate it, and it would be fun, but I think we're too. I don't want this to sound wrong, but I think we're too important to take time off of ourselves. And it just seems like Ewik's plans, it was too complicated and we were not making a lot of progress on that. So, by process of elimination, Tasman seemed the best. And what did you think, Norallie?
Yeah, I think Tasman's the best because we can still try one of our plans, and if it doesn't work, we can hit. So I think Tasman's the way to go.
Okay. All right. So of wisdom, courage, and power, we are choosing power, correct?
Mhm.
All right then. With that, wisdom and courage will excuse themselves and go tend to the king. Leaving, well, you're in the presence of Tasman, though he is himself going to excuse himself shortly so that he can get ready and rest up for the evening before you depart.
Now we should practice our Shadaha accents. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how good it'll go, but practice makes perfect.
Your accent is terrible, but that is one thing that I can help you with. I have perfected their language, as I have with several other languages. I can help coach you in these practical means.
Yes. To be fair, I've only interacted with a few Shadowheart people in Mesomasca, and like those people have been in Mesomasca for a little, so they kind of have a mix mash of like it's Shadowheart, but they also like say a few Mesomascan words like normally, or like, well, I guess with a Mesomasca accent. I don't know. So
I have plenty of interaction with the Shadowhar, alive, dead, and undead.
Yeah.
Wait, did you say undead?
Yes.
I chose to ignore that part.
Oh, I didn't choose to ignore that.
Okay.
I would be very interested to hear more about that. So undead Shadowhar, they were a big problem for us, and then they kind of faded away a little bit. And I'm wondering if there's anything you know.
I know much about the undead. Of all variety at that. I have been their bane for some time now.
Hey, could you say many fall in the face of chaos? Just for fun.
Many fall in the face of chaos.
But not this one. Not today.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. Okay.
Now I will go and prepare what I feel to be appropriate guises for you. You rest.
Okay.
Do what you need to do to prepare yourselves in the morning. I shall come fetch you, and you will follow me. If we're going to do this, I am going to lead the way.
Yeah, that's what we expected.
And I expect no deviation.
I'll try.
Well, you might want to expect deviation because we're not good at staying on track.
Then I shall correct you, and I hope I don't have to often.
That works. So when can we get those accent lessons?
We will begin in the morning.
Sounds good. Practice makes perfect. Practice makes perfect.
Practice makes perfect.
Practice makes perfect.
He doesn't excuse himself. He turns and he marches off. leaving you in the throne room. There is a retainer who is at the door, who kind of clears his throat politely and tells you that he can take you to your guest quarters.
Would anyone care if I sat on the chair for like 10 seconds?
If you did what?
The chair, the throne, the chair.
Are you asking the retainer if you can?
I'm asking the retainer. Would anyone care for like just 10 seconds? I sat on the throne.
Your brother doesn't care. The retainer looks at you. Please don't, ma'am.
Oh, could be something. It just looks really shiny.
It does. It looks. This is probably the purest, most refined and polished gold that you can imagine. You know, that is. It has all of the gems of the earth that have been mined and angled and polished and shimmering. It is. This is probably like this itself is worth several 100,000 gold pieces, and it's a chair.
What if like for 5 seconds?
I mean, the retainer is standing by the door. You aren't.
No, I'm asking him. I'm literally talking to the retainer. Like, what if it's just like 5 seconds?
Please don't.
Okay.
Even the king himself barely uses the throne. Do you remember when you walked in? Obviously, he walked in with you, and none of the three were sitting in the throne. They were just on the raised, like the dais in the room.
That's a shame. It's a really nice throne. I need to leave this room.
Okay. Bright, are you wanting to sit on the throne, or are you gonna follow the polite request of the retainer?
No, I'm good. I don't need to sit in the throne. As fun as it would be, I appreciate the appropriateness of that. So, no, I'll just go to the quarters. It's fine.
Okay. All right.
So close.
I'm going to presume that neither Celine nor Mordecai are going to sit in the throne. All right. Are we so we're leaving?
Yes, we're leaving.
All right. Norallie, are you doing? I mean, I'm not trying to bait you into this, but just to make sure, are you leaving the throne room, or are you gonna like somehow zap back through the dimensions and like sit in the throne and then run forward again?
She's leaving the throne room.
Okay. All right.
She is very giggly. This is me and her as one, very giggly about the thought of sitting in it, though.
Welcome, Raiders. You came in at a fun time, and I hope your own D&D game went well. So thank you, Dark Watchers, and everyone who came over with you. All right, so you leave, and you are taken through. You're taken through the keep here, and in fact, you're going to be you're taken out of the keep, the main keep, and you're told that you will be put up in a guest house in the. Now, this would be more akin to an actual village. So there's the keep. There is a village of people who are the servants and the local farmers and supporters of the keep itself. Whereas Breezebane is itself a functional town on its own. And so you can you will hop into the cart, and there will be a driver. You've never met this dwarf before, but she is waiting for you in the same cart that Galvin, King Victor, apparently had brought you in. And you can load in, and she tells you, "All right, we're gonna take you now to the guest house.
So
Do you have your things? You didn't forget anything in the keep, did you?"
only a dream.
Oh, there's plenty of dreams in there, and hopefully you'll have more to come when you sleep.
Mm-hmm. So, like, is it common for the king to pretend not to be the king?
Oh, that it does happen. It's not so much a pretend. At least not to the people who know. It's just it so happened that you didn't. It's more of a thing that he does where, as a ruler, he wants to be among his people, to be close to them, to understand their toils and struggles. And so while he does spend time here in the keep to do the official business, to stamp papers and whatnot, is what's needed. He does actually also just do work. He is not above mucking about in the fields.
I wonder if there's a Masculine Cabal. I wonder if they go out and it's hard to know because they have special masks for when they're in the Cabal. So you never know who's actually behind the mask, and they don't leave with their masks, so you don't see them in town or anything. So,
Yeah.
like, I wonder if they're, like, actually in town. They're actually just, like, normal people.
I mean, they probably are.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, it probably differs from one to another, right? There's some who probably enjoy it, some who probably don't.
Yeah. If anything, they probably live like the nobility. Or they're a bit higher up, but they're still like part of town. They still have businesses and whatnot to run.
I imagine though that you had a pretty good experience with it. Probably doesn't come across much like you might expect a leader to.
It's interesting. It's not my first time meeting a leader, but he's a pretty nice one.
Right. Well, on our way, and she giddy ups the mules that are taking the carriage, and through the night here, you begin to traipse across the floor of the valley. And let's see. Actually, I don't even need to roll for this. During your time across, the woman who's driving your cart begins whistling to herself. It's a song that at least has a similar rhythm and sound to a couple that the king was singing on his journey from Brisbane here to the keep. And so it must be something very traditional, some piece of folklore or history. During this time, though, she seems to be pleasantly distracted. Celine ends up noticing that you have a passenger aboard your cart, and it's Tig.
Okay.
And Tig very, very stealthily crawls out from under the cart and over the side to sit among the five of you.
How are you doing, Tig? Oh. How are you doing, Tig? I whispered.
You all right back there? Did you need something?
No, we're just talking amongst ourselves.
Why isn't Tig talking? She's usually so talkative. Unless she's stowing away. Tig, it's okay. You're not stowing away. You're allowed to be here.
Well, she probably is stowing away, but you're still loud. That's fine.
Tig's outside. Tig's outside of Brisbane. Not so welcome here.
Oh, well, if anyone asks, you're with us.
And her words actually came out in a rather scratchy sounding common. And common accented like your common, southern common.
She sure does learn these languages fast.
Hey, let's teach her the Noma's curse words.
I think we should speak just infernal around her. Because we all know it, don't we? Doesn't Celine know it? I'm sure everyone else does.
Yeah, but it'd be more fun to teach her Nomas because Selene and Mordecai and Loki don't know Gnomish.
Well, and you don't know that much Gnomish.
I know the curse words.
Yeah, I know. And let's be honest, I only know like half of it. That's how complicated it is.
Well, when you live as long as you do, you got to keep coming up with new words so that you can learn and go back and try and reconfigure and reattach concepts to each other. So, it gives you something to do. All right. So Tig hides amongst you, and has shown off an aptitude for picking things up, which maybe only confirms just how adaptive goblins can be. Or bogans, as the locals call them. But you make it here not just to the keep, but you are now in the village of New Denales, and you're led off. Tig had since hidden, so she wouldn't be detected by the wagon driver here. And
I'm gonna cast invisibility on Tig.
What's that?
I'm gonna cast invisibility on Tig. And tell her to sneak out with us.
Okay. Go ahead and cast it and give me a d20 roll.
Yeah.
Fireball.
I just send a beacon to the nearby shadow.
As you cast it, the
Oh wait, did you want me to roll wild magic or just roll to whether or not to have wild magic?
Huh? This was if wild magic was going to happen.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. So no wild.
Okay.
Okay.
As you cast the magic, the driver of the cart looks down and clutches at something that's producing light on a necklace, and she stands up. She shouts something in dwarven and grabs a crossbow.
What's going on?
And she's looking at all of you. Magic.
Oh, yeah,
It wasn't me.
magic happens.
I believe you've been told several times no magic.
We were told that in the castle. I didn't know that applied outside of the castle.
No magic.
Okay.
And some of the attendants from the guest manor come running up to the cart as well. One that would have been walking up from the front door towards the cart to receive you all. His necklace is only faintly glowing and is getting darker. They have an exchange in dwarven, back and forth, and there's some nodding and some words exchanged. At which point the driver sits back down and your attendant looks to you all. Bad form. No magic. I believe it's okay for now. What did you even do? What did you need?
Oh, it's something. It was just a little spell to change my eyes, and I'm gonna just one more time cast thaumaturgy to change my eyes. I did it out of habit, but I I won't do it anymore.
All right. You see that his necklace does sort of flare up just a little bit. No magic.
Okay.
It's not
Sorry.
good.
It was a habit. I'll turn it off when I get back inside.
I understand that you're guest of the king. As far as I know, you've not been provided any particular passes for the use of it. But it's something even the king himself is very hesitant to invoke unless it's dire and necessary.
Oh,
It's
well,
something that might be weird from where you're from, but while you're here,
yeah.
it's just call it a practice or a tradition.
Okay.
I don't expect you to necessarily understand.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll go inside and I'll turn the magic off.
It's just please, no magic. It can really cause an uproar. And it's also how we're able to live as peacefully as we do, given the Shadowheart.
You mean if you used magic, they wouldn't let you keep your lifestyle? But they use magic all the time.
They use
don't
magic all the
understand.
time. It's easy to know when they're about, even if they're not wanting to be about. They almost can't seem to help it.
Oh, so you detect the Shadowheart being around because of their magic.
If we don't use it and they do, it's a whole lot easier. In short, yes.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, I'll change my eyes when we're inside. So,
So you are led inside. For being a rural guest house, it is very well appointed. Now there are no chairs in here in Norallie that are as grand as the throne in the keep, but there are many chairs that are plush, and do have. There are things made of various precious metals as well, in both just art and even in practical use. So the concept of either the value of things or wealth might be skewed, whether or not it's a societal thing or it's just something with this village or with the dwarves overall, or it's just a way to sort of have a soft flex on guests. But there is, if you went to the kitchen, it's probably actual silver for the silverware. The plates are probably a nice porcelain. Like, there is wealth everywhere in this rural guest house.
I don't need anything. I don't need anything. I don't need anything.
As you go through, there's a very nice fire lit, because it's not it's not like a freezing night or anything. It is colder longer in the valley, even in summertime. And so the warmth it not only fills the main area here and will also filter through the rest of the guest house, but there is a cosmetic effect because there's a lot of things that sparkle with polished metals, with gems. There's almost a. This might be something more that Mordecai might either catch on to or find an interest in. Not that your other characters can't, but just given his artistic proclivities. The way that the fire plays off of the different engravings and like the way that things shine, it's not even that something is shiny and polished. The room has been decorated that against this light source from the fireplace, you're actually seeing like shadows play out across the room. And where there was something like it wasn't an empty picture frame, but it was a picture frame that would be a rolling hill. which, okay, it's a nature picture. Maybe that's your thing. Maybe it's not. It's a nice rolling hill. But now with the sparkles and the shadows that play off of the features of the room, it actually looks like there's a combat taking place in this field. And that there's glimmers of reflected light shining from various surfaces and shadows from other accoutrement in the room that is playing against this. Well, it looked like a quaint field, at least by day, and by the sparkling or by the light from the fireplace and the way that things have been arranged, it's actually a battlefield between a vaguely light force and a vaguely dark force. And thank you for the raid god mode. Thank you, Raven, for the shout out. And in this instance, Bright, I mean, this might capture your attention as well. And this is something that for sure Magic could very easily reproduce. But the fact that all of this has been set up in a way that is mundane, that is done through just natural reflection and the placement of objects. I don't know. It's a prompt for an observance from Bright, but this is certainly a magical effect that is recreated manually.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would be curious to see how much they. I don't know. I mean, they must have some artisans who specialize in making this kind of thing. We probably wouldn't have something like that where I come from. We just use an illusion.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how they invented it and I don't know, just what went into it. That's all.
Yep.
Once we're inside and the dwarven attendants have left, I will turn off my thaumaturgy and the invisibility on Tig.
Okay.
See, that wasn't so bad.
Tig, think.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know there was like super anti-magic. I just thought there was no magic in like the castle, which makes sense because it's a castle, it's high security, but like you can't even have it in a normal town.
I mean, they let me use it when I was taking care of the cows. Although it kind of went wrong, so that was kind of fun.
Also, like, they didn't say anything when we turned invisible inside the castle.
Well, I think that was an emergency.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, you had expressed permission to do so, and you were also in the field of view of Ewick. Also, where you're at is an extension of the keep itself. It's not just staying in a barn in the middle of the countryside.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, like, is no one allowed to use magic, or are they not allowed to use magic because of the Shadow Heart? Do they choose not to use magic so they know when the Shadow?
Yeah. Well, that's what they said. They said they choose not to use it so that they can tell who's Shadowheart and who's not. And in cases like where we've been doing it, it's usually been a special case because everyone knows who we are. Or we've been in the middle of nowhere where there was really no concern.
Mm-hmm.
And Norallie, like the king's big
how
spell.
they could hold up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bright. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I don't know how they could hold up. I mean, if one side uses magic and the other side doesn't, they'll just be at such a disadvantage.
Maybe that's why. I mean, this kind of sounds bad, but maybe that's why they lost and the Shadowheart have taken over this.
Well, that's an upsetting way to put it, but it could be.
Yeah, I don't. There's definitely a better way to word that, but that's just how I thought it. I guess like maybe if they utilize magic a bit more, they'd have a better advantage. Would be a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Celine also brings up the point that it might have something to do with. She starts to say the name of Weejas, although she would catch herself. And while you're not currently being tended to, There are attendants in this house for security, and also people who will just, maids, people who are taking care of the, just the animals and stuff that are here as part of the carriage house, and everything is a part of the guest rooms. But she goes to say the name of Weejas, but the lady who shall not be named also does. She's not just the Lady of Death.
What else? What else does she do?
I didn't go to Sunday school.
She also is the patron of magic.
Celine
so
nods.
If they reject her, they have to reject all of the things that she provides.
Well, she's not the only source of magic.
Well, not the only, but I mean, that's squirm uncomfortably.
Well, I just naturally have magic, and if you ask Selena and Mordecai, they'll say it was Zubua. And Loki's magic is what is it even from now? It's like it was from Shonaruth, but you're not connected to him anymore, but you can still do the magic bits. So maybe you just no magic now.
Oh yeah, maybe it's just a part of who I am now. I'm not going to argue with it.
Yeah, so it seems like a little extreme, I guess, to refuse all magic just because one source of magic you're not fond of, I guess would be the right word.
Loki doesn't have any cultural commentary in that regard. He'll agree with you, Norallie, but it's like, it's their loss. Might be a good place. I don't know, Norallie. It might be an opportunity for you if you want to retire and you can become a magic teacher up here and, help them civilize or something.
I'd rather stand as a mascot.
It's kind of weird because, maybe Weejas is the patron of magic, but it's not like I have to say a prayer to Weejas to cast a spell. It's just, it's always, I don't know. It's never been that much of a connection for me. Maybe there's some way there's some other way I should be thinking about it. Maybe that's why my magic doesn't work on Shonaruth, because there's some sort of block between Weejas and Shonaruth, and maybe I'm unintentionally invoking Weejas power when I try to cast at Shonaruth. I don't know. It's interesting.
That would be why Mordecai and Celine couldn't do it. And we haven't tested since they got their new land powers, but if my land powers work, their land powers. So.
Yeah. Well, I think we should. Before the time comes, we should definitely make another stop in northern Mezamaska and see if we can maybe get a handle on some of those special flowers. Those might come in handy.
As you say that, Mordecai is contemplating, along with Celine too. So they're doing some collusion. That might be something. They have a sense of a memory up here, and well, at least from what we've learned, the land doesn't forget. But they also don't treat the land like a god or a goddess. But they seem to be able to remember. They seem to be able to recall and have a different way of life up here. Despite them, if you believe the visions, despite them originating from the same place that we did.
Well, if they reject Weejas and Weejas is where all the memory goes, then it makes sense. Because maybe when they die, they don't go to Weejas.
That's
Not,
interesting.
neither of them have further commentary.
Mordecai/Celine, you've been dead a few times. Did you ever see dwarves when you were with Weechas? Like going to her?
I mean, both of them, they're not going to give an immediate no. They're going to stop and look at each other. And
I don't see
the
anything.
question that you just posited to them is, I don't know, some mix of good, bad, or confusing or concerning, because they didn't, well, hang on one second. They don't recall seeing any dwarves. Norallie, as far as your your limited experience with death, you don't recall seeing any dwarves either.
I saw some people.
And that included in Oiho. I mean, anyone who is in Oiho seemed to be, not themselves. Yeah, there were no dwarves swimming around in the Soul Stream, going into Weejas that any of you recall.
Maybe we should ask dwarves what happens when they.
Yeah, that'd be nice to know.
That's like a normal question you can ask people, right?
Well, I mean, we just need to present it. I mean, we've already raised the topic of Weejas, so we can just go. It's a nice segue. We'll just say, well, if you don't have Weejas, then what happens when you die? What's your beliefs? And then that's totally normal.
Yeah. And then Mordecai can be like, can we talk about our Lord and Savior of the land? As religious types do.
All right. Well, you have your own rooms that you can stay in if you wish. If you want to bunk up, you can ask for a cot, and they won't charge you extra for it like a hotel. And the night will pass. I wonder if it'll pass with or without incident. 1 second. Okay.
Should we bunk up? Should we? Because how many beds are in each room?
How many what?
How many beds are in each room?
You each have your own bedroom, if you prefer. You can ask to bunk up or to double up or whatever, but like in a hallway in this guest room, like there are multiple rooms. Like this is a countryside manor, so it is very large, though it is still rural, and each of you can have your own room.
How do I get Tig caught without raising suspicion?
Tig sleep in corner.
She can probably just hide.
Tig squish.
Oh no, Tig, you should be in a bed.
Tig cuddle?
Yeah, that could work.
Tig cuddle with who?
Well, I don't mind as long as the bed's big, but if it's a normal sized bed, maybe Brighton Tig should go.
Yeah, you can snuggle me if you need. I have a little bird that I usually also snuggle. Although sometimes the bird lately has looked like a professor, so maybe that won't happen.
I don't know if you want to snuggle with a little professor. I'm pretty sure he has a thing for shelter.
Not sure it would be appropriate. We'll see how it works out, and if the bed is not too small, but maybe I don't know. Yeah, we'll just see how the bed size works out. It'll be okay.
All right. As you're making your plans, so I guess Tig is going to be in with Bright. There's a wind that is picking up, and you do hear distant thunder. It does sound like thunder. Although, as a part of your all's getting ready for the night, doing whatever you do, washing your face, changing. There are clothes that are made available if you need some PJs or the like. A bath or anything like that. There is, for a couple minutes, some bright lights you can see outside of just about any window in this guest estate. And the lights are being projected from a very large, maybe not quite Imperator class, whatever the next step down might be. But there is an airship that is circling above the village here, and it has some very strong, most likely magically produced lights that are sweeping over the village before turning off, and the airship just sort of continues into a circular patrol above the valley here. Just a slow, almost like a vulture, just doing circles over this place. And you can see its faint lights in the night, even though the wind is picked up and it looks like it might rain tonight.
This is a shadow warship?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to test something. I'm going to test it. When the ship is not directly overhead, I want to try using Storm's Guide to change the direction of the wind. This is just as a test because this is a natural ability that isn't a spell for her. So probably should just be like waiting out the window and just kind of like whirl the wind the other way and see if this activates anything. I don't know if she can like keep an eye on a maid or someone who would have one of those necklaces and try it to see if it would activate as magic.
What's the range of your ability?
And if it is windy, you can use a bonus action each round to choose the direction that the wind blows in a 100-foot radius sphere, centered on me.
Okay. Well, there's not a maid in your room unless you wanted to call one in. So, I mean, you can open up a window, and in fact, the wind almost like takes it from you, and as there's a gust, but you quickly take control of the wind, and you have it blow. But the ship is beyond the 100 feet that your wind shifting would be able to influence. Okay. Though, as for the experiment of could this possibly get someone's attention, either they're also beyond 100 feet of you, or if there's no wind that you're manipulating in the guest house, it might not be. It may not be triggering their abilities, or it just doesn't overall.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just like play with the wind a little and kind of just listen to see if anyone makes like an audible gasp or says like, "Oh, is there magic somewhere?" And I'll just do this for like a minute or two, and if nothing happens, I'll go to bed.
Make a perception at disadvantage.
Can do.
Okay.
I don't know, I'm here it's just windy.
So yeah, the wind was kind of blowing around. Maybe it dried your eyes out a little bit, and then it started to rain. And while you can make a shield for it, like a little bit, just kind of you just got some rain in your eyes or something. But yeah, it is a dark and stormy night.
All right, I will assume that I can use this ability without triggering anyone. I'm gonna shut the window, and go to bed.
Okay. You do so. And the night passes.
What became of Tig? Did I snuggle her, or
yes,
or did she get her own bed? Okay, I snuggled Tig. And did Peggy Sue look like the professor, or did she look like Peggy Sue?
Peggy Sue would look like the professor, although,
Yeah.
I mean, you might be able to ask the professor to, I don't know, like, look away or deactivate or something, if you wanted.
Yeah. So, Peggy Sue, I'm really sorry. I know we normally snuggle every night. And since I don't think you experience the passage of time when you're in your place, it must seem like we spend basically all of our time just snuggling. But not that that's bad.
Good reflection on the choice where maybe you became an animal in this other reality.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry we won't be able to snuggle tonight. But maybe soon. Okay, bye. Poof.
Okay. So Tiny
I'll snuggle
Professor,
I'll snuggle Tig.
Tiny Professor dissipates, and you go to cuddle up with the not quite as feral goblin as the other ones you'd experienced. And the stormy night will proceed apace with the ship of the governor slowly circling overhead. Tensions high in the keep, and well, you're gonna have a morning as well. What we're gonna do though, let's get up and take a little bit of a break, because at least I need to get up and refresh myself. We can come back in 10 minutes if you're good, and then we will have you wake up in the morning. I promise none of you are gonna wake up dead, and we'll see what happens when you meet up with Tasman and board the ship for the mountain. So we'll be back soon, everyone. See you shortly.